Brings the time to 8:36 now. It was a divisive campaign, wasn't it? It was marked by fierce clashes over race, immigration and other cultural issues. But Democrats, well, they're back in the driving seat this morning in the US House of Representatives after the midterm elections. The Republicans, though, they've held on to control of the upper house, that's the Senate. But what does it all mean, and will America be as divided after this election as before? Well, Erol Morkoc is a chief strategist with Republicans overseas, and Inga K.M. Trump is the chair of Democrats Abroad UK. Thank you both for joining us. Inga, if I could,
thank you for having us.
If I could maybe start with you, Inga, are you content this morning the Democrats have more or less said done what they said they'd do?
Well, I think so. It was a really good night for Democrats. And, of course, the headline, as you say, is that the Democrats took the House. And I think this is a clear rebuke to Trump. I think the American people have been watching what he's been up to for the last 2 years. They haven't liked what they've seen, and they voted for more inclusive leadership. There's a record number, for example, of women going to Congress, and they are overwhelmingly Democrats. So we're more diverse now. The House is more diverse and more reflective of the nation's population. And despite the horrendous gerrymandering we had to face, I think we did really well. So I am really in a good mood and really hopeful this morning.
Erol, is Inga right to be in a good mood? And how are you feeling? Is it a glass half full or glass half empty?
Oh, I think she certainly has a right to be in a good mood, and congratulations. I mean, you guys finally got a victory.
Thank you.
It's for us. It's a glass half full thing. We're realistic people. The results have come in a way that was kind of expected. We picked up a little bit more in the Senate than we had expected, maybe. And one of the good things that we have is that now we get to see what the Democrats are going to do in that position, and they have a chance to work with us on infrastructure, prisoner reform, border security, or they can go down that impeachment of Trump Kavanaugh. So there's a great chance for unity, and I think as Americans we have a chance to come together now with bipartisan things, and that's always a positive.
In elections, it's always great to see some new themes develop, and one of which, as Inga mentioned there, is the record number of female members of Congress. There was 2 Muslim congresswomen elected. We also had our first gay governor in the US, that was Jared Polis of Colorado. I wonder, Erol, does this spell any kind of trouble in the long term for the Republican Party?
In the long term, no. The Republican Party is a very inclusive party, and we welcome these new individuals to the entire part of politics. Certainly, we wish that we had some of them on our side at this point, but certainly it indicates a shift, and America becomes much more diverse. I'm an immigrant myself to America, so I mean, there's people on many sides of this.
I think it was being hailed before people cast their votes. Well, they were crying. Democrats were crying for a blue wave. Didn't quite materialize that way. Some are saying more of a blue rinse.
Well, that's very funny. I think it was a blue wave because we were actually talking about 2 separate elections yesterday. The one for the Senate doesn't tell us that much about the future because it was in very red, deep red states. But what the House tells us about, that was fought on the nation as a whole. And I think that's more of a pointer to the future. Just consider something I saw that those voting age 18 to 29, Democrats won by 35% in that population. So I think in general we're seeing the nation's future is predicted by the House results, and the Senate tells us little other than the random array of states that just happen to be up in this year's context. So 27 Democrat seats up in the House so far. I don't think all the races have been called, though.
What do you want your new congressmen and women to do? I mean, Nancy Pelosi talked about working on common ground, but that they'll stand firm on issues where they disagree. Do you see the next couple of years a Democratic Party frustrating Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, I think we'll be frustrating him only in the sense that his extremist viewpoint kind of thing will be fighting. But you know what? Let's put it this way. I think the grown-ups are back. We're not going to be like as happened in 2010 when the Republicans took the House when Obama was president and they basically vowed to thwart all of his policies. We're not going to be like that. So let me just put it this way. I think the grown-ups are back in the House and we can look forward to some real progress.
And Errol, I'm not sure where you stand exactly on Donald Trump, but there was lots of focus by the Democratic Party on targeting his connections with Republican candidates. That seems to have backfired somewhat because the candidates that supported Trump did seem to more or less get through the gate.
Well, yes, Donald Trump is our star. Where Trump goes, the votes seem to follow. We certainly. I personally am a Trump supporter, and it was refreshing to see that. I disagree with my colleague here. I feel that the Senate vote really reflects more of what we're going to see coming for 2020. There was a lot of confidence there. We have the fact that we can fortify the Senate and confirm more than 100 judges. So it was important to have the Trump effect on the campaign. And it certainly trumped the, no pun intended, the Obama effect for where he stumped. So that's something to consider.
What do you want from the remainder of his term, Errol? Would you like to see the wall between the US and Mexico get built? What are your priorities?
Well, the wall is a priority, of course, for us, just for border security. But it would be great to see some bipartisanship come across the line. There's parts of infrastructure, parts of border security that are interests of all Americans, regardless of creed or geographic origin. So I would really like to see Donald Trump go forward, be positive. He's a deal maker. He's the kind of person who's willing to work with people. He has the Senate. You folks have the Congress, and now is a time for, I believe, a little bit of border cohesion between the two parties. We need to dial down the rhetoric and work more on American happiness. We'll say that. Even just happiness would be a nice thing if they tone it down. So I hope Trump comes and does some work with this new Congress.
Erol Morkoc, thanks very much indeed for that. And just very briefly, if I could, Inga, in the 10 or 15 seconds we have, just because there was so much outside interest in the US midterms, who is a rising star in the Democratic Party that maybe people should keep an eye on?
Well, I think there's lots of them. I mean, I was very pleased by Stacey Abrams. She's an interesting, articulate, fantastic woman. Whether she wins or not yet, we don't really know. That race isn't over. But keep an eye on her. Keep an eye on some of the younger candidates we have as well. It's a diverse group, and there's so many. It's sort of difficult to get started, but I'm really pleased with what we see.
Inga K.M. Trump, Chair of the Democrats abroad UK. Thanks very much for joining us on that. And just to keep you up to date, counting is still underway, of course, in places, but here are how things stand. So far, Republicans have consolidated their lead in the Senate and are currently confirmed to have 51 seats. The Democrats have reached the 218 seats they need to take control of the House, which is deemed a significant blow to President Trump 2 years in. And they also made gains in governor races, gaining 6 states from Republicans so far.